it's time.
Hello.
So
I said hello.
you gotta
Hello.
eat the microphone. Okay, another thing you'll notice at these panels is that voice actors, when they sit down next to a microphone, instantly know where to place it. Instantly. Writers are like, what is this thing? Do I speak into it? Do I write about it? What do I do with it? Okay, so sitting to my left and to your right is M.A. Larson. Next we have story editor Meghan McCarthy. Next to her is Amy Keating Rogers. And next to Amy's, I believe, ukulele. Is that right? Yeah, it's your ukulele. Okay, you don't have to applaud the ukulele. Questions addressed to the ukulele will be summarily discounted and ignored. And last but certainly not least is Cindy Morrow. I want to start off this panel by doing something a little bit, I guess, opinionated of myself. I usually, when I come to conventions, I don't wear swag. It's just something I don't do. I usually wear, the badge or whatever. But today I wore a pin that the lovely Pixel Kitties came up with. It says, "I believe in M.A. Larson." Yeah! And I just want to say, just off the bat, that I really want to congratulate you guys on season 3. It just ended. I think the season finale is one of the strongest episodes of the series so far, and you guys had a lot to do with that, especially M.A. and Meghan here. So I wanted to just start off right away and just say that because it's fresh in a lot of our minds, and it's something that I think you deserve some applause for. So,
Thanks.
Well, so first I wanted to introduce you guys. For you guys who don't know, M.A. Larson here is the writer of such episodes as Sonic Rainboom, Return of Harmony, It's About Time, and that's it.
And a bunch of other stuff.
And I guess my first question for you, M.A., is, what if you could say something to Full Papers right now? What would you say, and why isn't it condescending enough?
It could never be condescending enough. I'd probably say, "Hey, baby," which is sort of an inside joke, so that's why.
A little bit. No, so Meghan, how are you finding Vegas?
Awesome.
You have to talk into the microphone.
Yeah, I know. You're right. We don't know what to do.
Are things, as a story editor now, I mean, I think this is something that's kind of interesting to talk about because season 4 has been announced.
Sort of.
Sort of.
Not by us, but yeah.
Theoretically announced and
Yes,
semi-confirmed.
Yes.
One thing that people don't realize is that the episodes are written way before when they air. But I did want to ask, have things started to kind of die down a little bit now that the season is over, or is that when production moves into full swing?
It's not. It hasn't. We're in full swing, and
Really?
yeah. Well, we're moving at a clip with all the writing. So yeah, we kind of and we're doing something really. I think that's really ambitious for season 4. It's something we haven't done on the show before, and so we've mapped out something that's much bigger and more epic for this upcoming season than anything we've done in the past. So yeah, we're right in the thick of it.
Well, Amy King Rogers.
Yes.
Everybody's on their phones. I love this.
I was
Every
tweeting.
convention, the smartphones come out. Mine's giant, I know. You have been working on Care Bears.
Oh, I've actually been done with Care Bears for probably a year.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't divulged that because I wasn't able to talk about that I was working on season 4. So I just kept saying, I'm working on Care Bears. So yeah, I'm finished with Care Bears, and I've been writing on season 4. Ooh, woohoo! Of this show, and doing other things on the side as well.
Awesome. And Cindy, I hear rumors that you have been writing episodes for Disney and for Nickelodeon. Is that correct?
I'm just working on some projects, not necessarily episodes, but there is writing involved. Is that vague enough? There is writing involved.
That's really vague. Uselessly so.
I'm doing the writing. How's that? Is it a little more specific? You can never talk about shows until they're announced or they're made.
Until you guys like
they
snoop
actually...
them out by reading like business reports or whatever.
Right,
from the parent company.
Cindy and I are actually working on something. We're both writing. It's not something we came up with, but it's something that we both got hired to write something. But we both signed these non-disclosure agreements, so that it makes it for very boring conversations because they're like, "Yeah, I'm writing on something, but can't tell you anything about it." So that's kind of what Cindy's trying to talk around at the moment.
But yes, I am clicking away on a keyboard, which makes words appear on a screen.
Little less useless, still useless. No. Well, actually, one thing that originally when this particular panel was planned was that you guys were going to discuss or in a sense demonstrate how episodes were assembled. Unfortunately, we don't have the equipment to do it. But I was wondering, Meghan, if you could kind of describe for the audience here who may not know, how is it that you guys as a team write episodes for My Little Pony or for other shows you work on?
Sure. First, our corporate overlords. Come in and tell us this is the story that you should tell.
Is that Mattel? Is it Mattel?
No. The real way that it happens is that at the beginning of every season we have a big powwow where we get the writers, the people that are going to write episodes that season, come in for a couple days, and we just throw out, everybody comes in with a couple of springboards, just very simple ideas that have hopefully a beginning and a middle end, but sometimes just a nugget of something. And we throw them up on a big whiteboard, and then we sort of say, these are the ones we're really clicking with. And we will, as a group, just kind of break those out into about a paragraph's worth of information. And then those are submitted, and sometimes they're written by someone who was in that meeting with us. Sometimes I'll just type them up, though I've been just trying to assign them to other people instead of me having to do it. And then those will get submitted to the studio and the network, and we'll get their feedback on what's working or not working. And then we'll schedule a story meeting with the writer who'll be doing that particular episode. And sometimes that episode is an idea that writer came up with themselves, but a lot of times it's just something that either we came up with in the room, or me having gotten a bunch of premises rejected, sat in a room by myself, just freaking out until I came up with something to give them to do. And then we will, and usually if it's like an episode that like totally be misconstrued as like racist or anti or like pro-religion or super right-wing, I just give it to Polsky. Or if like we're planning on killing off like sentient beings, I'll be like, Polsky, you take this one.
I have to jump in really quick. Have you heard the way that people have been mishearing Applejack's recent song?
Racist Barn? Yeah.
Racist Barn? Is that Polsky's fault as well?
No, that's all Cindy.
That's my fault.
Okay.
Just put that all on Cindy. But yeah, so then we'll bring in whoever's going to write the episode. And we were kind of hoping we could try to do it today, but we don't have it. But we usually have a big whiteboard behind us, and we break it into Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. And we'll basically beat out all the scenes in the episode. Sometimes we'll pitch jokes in the room. A lot of times it's just, here's how the story is gonna move forward. And then my new favorite thing to do is whenever the stories meeting is over, I like to write somewhere in there, Applejack pregnancy scare. just so like whoever has the conference room next might see it and be like, wait, what? But so far it hasn't, like, I like laugh about it at home. I'm like, they're gonna see it, it's gonna be hilarious. And so far no one has mentioned it, so I guess they all just think like season 4, Applejack's having a baby or something. I don't know. Seem okay.
Are you confirming that she's not?
Applejack, I can confirm that Applejack will not have a baby in season 4. I can. I'm sorry to be the one to squash that rumor. I know that was what everyone was looking for. And also, these guys, you may want to kind of talk about what their sort of personal process is once we've broken the story, or what they kind of want to, because sometimes we'll walk out of there and have things really fleshed out, and sometimes it'll just be like, fill in the gaps, you know what'll happen. But it's kind of different with every writer, so I don't know if anybody else wants to sort of speak to once we have the story meeting, how they proceed from there.
She's looking at you, M.A.
I don't want to. Yeah, it's basically fleshing, just expanding at every step of the way. First, you start macro. This is the episode. Here's who it's about. Then you break it down. That's what that meeting's about. And then you kind of build it back up, little piece by little piece, I guess.
You seem to have it pretty well together.
I think also what we typically do, excuse me, I've been sick all week. For most of the jobs that I've done in the last few years, we always follow up a meeting with an outline, and an outline is usually a fairly detailed synopsis about what is going to happen in the episode. And on average, I think maybe like a 22-minute episode might be 6 or 7 pages. An 11-minute episode would be maybe 4 to 5 pages, or 3 to 4 pages. And that's something that the, what did you call them, corporate overlords?
Corporate overlords.
Can look at and get a good idea about what the script is going to be like. And then after that process, after that's approved, then we go to the script. So there is still an important step in between the meeting and the script writing.
I have no idea what to say.
She just got off the plane. She's really hungry.
My burger's sitting right here. I'm so distracted.
Does anybody have any objection if she eats the burger on stage?
Okay, thank you so much. But it's okay. Well, let me talk to you first. Writing. We'll figure out all those beats, and what I think is really cool about how Meghan works is she'll put Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 up on the board, but then she likes to put on the board what the moment at the end of Act 1 and the moment at the end of Act 2 is, so we know where we're heading, what those act breaks are going to be, what I call the oh crap moment is that are going to make you want to come back after the commercial.
Call it? I always call it the dun 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 moment.
I think most people call it a cliffhanger.
Yeah, well, I actually use a.
Do you want to be technical about it?
Cliffhanger, exactly. And I actually use worse words, but there are children present. So I'm trying to keep. There are.
Oh, yay, okay.
Right there. So that's a nice thing in the story meetings that you know what your goal is, and how do we get to that cliffhanger moment, and so that you really are able to map it out really nicely. And then with seasons 1 and 2, we would have this pile of cards, because we did it on index cards, that you go through, and then you just go through kind of beat by beat and write the outline, versus using the whiteboard. It's the same thing, it's just written in a different way. I kind of take notes along the way, and then really figuring out that outline, because making sure that that's really well thought out and detailed makes jumping into a script so much easier, because you have your map, and it's just it just has cleared the way so that you know what you're doing, and that daunting 33-page script isn't quite as daunting if you have a map laid out for you.
So would you say overall that the way you guys create an episode is highly structural, that you go in knowing there's a structure and then you just kind of try to fit the elements in where they would fit, almost like a framework followed by the materials?
Yeah, absolutely. Jinx. Yeah, I always say, people, I'll say, oh, I write for Pony, or I write for a TV show, and they'll say, oh, so you write what they say. And that's like it's strange, but it's kind of the least important part, because it's what they do that is what moves the story forward. If your whole story hinges on like a line of dialogue, then you're probably in trouble with that story, because it's about how they act that propels things forward. And what I actually love about this kind of writing is that it has a very right brain, left brain kind of thing. It's like a math problem with words, because it has to follow this structure, but a structure that at the same time you have to hide enough that people don't see every single step that's coming. You're guiding them through to these places in a subtle way.
For the episodes that have already aired, what has been the most difficult episode to write for you guys? I'm curious because, I know that you have a process for it, but I'm thinking, too, you mentioned that for most of the episodes, the dialogue is kind of a last portion of it. But I'm thinking, for example, of Amy King Rogers' episode Mystery on the Friendship Express that is very dialogue-driven. Is that more difficult, say, for you to do, or is there a type of episode that is more difficult for you to write?
That one was difficult because I had so many things kind of going on. You had flashbacks going on, and finding things but not finding them correctly, and so that one was very complicated, kind of structure-wise. So while it had a lot of dialogue in it, just figure you have your basic mystery kind of structure, but I'd never written a mystery before, and I think that's a very special skill. So to really do that and to also have it be a surprise, not that it was a huge surprise at the end, but to try and string along that you don't know quite who the culprit is. And for me, I know the toughest ones were the ones in season 1, because I was trying to find out who those voices were. As things went on, and especially in writing season 4, I have these voices so firmly in my head that, writing the dialogue part is much easier. But then, as Megan said, you want to come up with stories that you guys are that is not predictable, and it's interesting, and it has, fun twists that you wouldn't expect.
Well, one thing that, Emma, that you've talked about with me before, and I've mentioned on other panels before, that I think is kind of a cool way to look at this, and this is something too that when I've talked to, say, fanfic writers or any writers within the fandom, you really like the sitcom approach to writing episodes or writing dialogue, where you take, say, two polar opposite characters and put them together and see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you have an ensemble cast like this, 6 main characters and Lord knows how many secondary characters. You want to put them in situations where they can play off each other. That's all Sonic Rainboom is playing Rarity and Rainbow Dash off each other. I grew up on sitcoms, and I adore sitcoms, and that's what I saw the show as. That's sort of why it appealed to me.
Well, and you've also said, though, in the past that there's one character that's the most difficult for you to write.
Yes, and I'm sure a lot of people will agree. Fluttershy is tough for me. It's hard to make a really meek character funny, and that's what I look for in any of them, is how do you make them funny. You can make a straight man funny or this or that, but she's a little tricky. So I really like using her in throwaway lines. Like there's a line in Super Cider Squeezy where she's Rainbow Dash is all mad because she didn't get any cider, and Fluttershy just says, "For the record, I didn't mind," and then she's pushed aside. Like that's the kind of line I love for her, because it's like so her, but it's just a little. She's not the focus of it. I find her difficult. I'm sure a lot of fans would agree that I find her difficult.
Well, for the other writers, do you guys find that's the same for you? Because I imagine that each of you have your own approach towards how you write the characters, and that may not be the case that that she's the hardest to write.
For me, I think sometimes Applejack is harder to write for, just because she feels like the most even keel. Like it's hard to get her into a situation to kind of lose it and have conflict within her, just because I feel like she's got it together compared to to the rest of it, for the most part. We have some stuff coming up that she gets to be pretty great and pretty funny.
I think for me personally, I see characters in two ways. I often try to be in their shoes and understand who they are as characters and kind of feel who they are and write through them. But sometimes I also have the difficulty of then actually writing the dialogue in the way they would say it. So for me, there's two different parts. So Rarity is kind of difficult actually for me to write, because I don't know if you guys had this. Actually, you're really good at it, Amy. But those colloquialisms and things that she says, I don't really know how to write for that type of character, but I know how she feels inside. So for me, it's two-sided.
For me, prior to the reveal of season 4, which we can say, it's interesting. At every other con, I said that I really enjoyed writing Pinkie Pie, which I really do. And I also enjoy Applejack. Those are the ones who I guess I had written the most, because my first script, my first complete one, was Applebuck season. So, that's very heavy Applejack. And then Pinkie Pie in A Friend Indeed, I got to really play with Pinkie in there. And I hadn't really had an opportunity to do, I'd had Rarity and that in the Diamond Dogs episode, and that was really hard for me because I had a tough time balancing her being a pain in the butt, but not being unlikable. So that was difficult. But with season 4, I've gotten to write for some ponies that I didn't previously get to write a lot of their dialogue for. And so that's been really, really fun to get to know those other characters that I hadn't really, they had smaller roles in my previous script. So that's been a lot of fun.
Well, I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to ask these guys questions. So up here, there's a microphone. Now, my good friend, Mr. Brush and Bones, back there wearing the black shirt, he is going to be making sure that the questions are age appropriate. If you guys have questions for the writers, please form a line there, and he will make sure that they are not, let's just say, too spaghetti-ish.
And by the way, if you see any red dots on any of us, it's just the Hasbro snipers.
Yeah. That's okay. We got some of those guys covered. We got them covered.
Do you have any specific guidelines for the questions?
Yeah, some basic guidelines. Obviously, these guys can't talk about anything that hasn't aired yet, or rumors about things that haven't aired yet. That's not going to be
alleged season 4.
Alleged. Well,
An alleged other.
It's not very alleged
thing.
But they can't talk about the
we
specifics.
can talk in some
generalities.
Some
perhaps?
generalities.
Okay.
Yeah. There may be a couple questions that people might have that I can quell fears.
There we go. Okay, so in generalities, perhaps, but then also make sure if you're asking a question, keep it clean.
Keep it clean.
A little bit. Just a little bit. And no, they have not read your fanfic. I'm sorry.
We haven't read your fanfic.
It's true.
Not in the line. Just
I might have, though, so you can ask me later.
You're at the wrong convention, sir.
How would you go about doing it?
Well, he's both Trixie and Nikki.
Oh.
See how that works? He's Trixie Mouse. No, he's not.
Yeah. Does that work? Yeah.
I bet you anything full papers is.
Okay, if you had to write a crossover between My Little Pony and any other show in existence, what would you pick, and how would you go about doing it?
Crossover.
One that would never, I mean, we could obviously never, ever do, but I would do Breaking Bad with ponies.
Okay, I gotta say
See
this.
it like somebody did like a breaking pony like thing.
Can I
It
please
was
say this?
so cool, and they're like in the hazmat suits.
Megan, can I please say this?
Yes.
The crystal meth empire, then.
Well,
I'm
Did you
sorry.
want the kids? Did you want the kids at the front of the
I'm
line,
trying.
Draft? Did you want the kids at the front of the line?
What's that?
Kids at the front of the line?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Screw you guys.
I was wondering, how come in season 3 there wasn't a rarity episode?
Oh, I knew I was getting that one. Good. From the kids, even.
From the mouths of babes.
Kids in the back of the line.
That's actually a great question, and I'm so glad that you asked it. Sometimes you start an episode, and it's a rarity episode. And then, like a couple drafts in, it turns into an Applejack episode. And then you forget that happened. And then you tweet, hey, everybody, get really excited for this rarity episode. And then it airs, and it's an Applejack episode. And then people send you a lot of really not nice tweets about you being a jerk for promising a rarity show. So, yeah, we really did have an episode. It was actually the Spike at Your Service episode that started off with Rarity having a much bigger role. And it kind of goes to sort of Cindy talking about how Rarity talks and difficulty with her. She started to come across in this kind of version of the story really mean. And we were like, well, that's not, we don't want that to be the episode. And so we really turned it in a new direction. But I really did forget that because it's such a long time between when we write the episodes and when they air. So I was just like, Twitter, instant, and no one will ever remember that I tweeted this, but they do. But I do want to say, and I promise, I know you shouldn't believe me now that I've lied to you so horribly, but she's got some stuff coming up that is going to make you so happy because it makes me... But yes, if you're a Rarity fan, there really is. There are some episodes that, one in particular, just thinking about it just makes me just so like giddy with excitement.
But Rainbow Dash is off the show.
Yeah, but yeah, she's killed off an episode.
And this is a novelty here that isn't common, but we do have a question from up in the booths up there. So if you could.
Hello.
Is this on?
It is.
Excellent. So what are the odds we're going to get a Star Swirl the Bearded episode?
You asked for this. I tried to give you an out.
What are the odds?
What are the odds?
We're in Vegas.
Yeah. I don't know what the odds.
You should be able to bet
are.
on that in the sports book.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the odds are.
Are there odds?
Is that your way of saying next question, please?
Yeah.
Look, an LTT moves.
Star Swirl, yeah, look, there we go. Look, what's our looking
All
like?
right. Hi, I was wondering if any of you had an episode idea that you really wanted to write, but you didn't have time to do, or Hasbro never approved of it? Or approved it?
It's hard to say because you never know if they'll come back again. You know, we may actually use, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
But yeah, I have 3 in this folder here that when we were going to do the mock story meeting, I said, oh, we could do one of these ones that we didn't do. And and I went through mine. I'm like, oh, yeah, that was a funny one. Oh, that's good, too. And then some of them, sometimes you don't do them because they're similar to other episodes. So I pitched one that kind of seemed a little, once I learned about the Bad Seed episode, I said, oh, it's a little similar to that. So things like that happen a lot, where you think you have a great idea, but it's so great it's already been done.
I think just about everybody in here wants to know what those episodes in your folder are.
Oh, you're gonna have to guard that with your life.
I'll just tell you a little. One was called Lollygabber, and it was about Pinkie Pie who just wanted to go lollygabbing. She decided it's lollygabbing day, and it's not.
she would.
It's not lollygagging because she's not just sitting around. She's lollygabbing. She's talking a lot, and she wants all her friends to lollygab with her. So that's one of my gems that.
But I think
You
too,
won't be
though,
seeing.
you can't get too attached to ideas, especially in something where we have our writer summit at the beginning, and everybody's just throwing ideas out there. You can't be so attached to something that you can't just let it go and say, okay, that didn't work. Let me pitch something else. That's part of the process.
Yeah.
Where in the writing process do you guys decide there's going to be a song in this episode?
When we break the story after we have a premise. Sometimes we'll know at the premise stage, depending on what kind of story it is. If there's characters we've heard sing before that we want to have sing again, we might know. Yeah, we're definitely going to have them sing in this episode. But during that outline process, when we're breaking the story, it'll be like scene, and then there'll be a musical number here, and then scene. So we know at that stage. And I try to throw a song in like every episode, and then they're like, we can't do that.
Do you guys have any interaction with the IDW comic coming out? Is there any cohesion at all? No?
Maybe she does.
I have had just a little bit where it was more about has something been established on the show that we need to have continuity, or we're going to do this. Is that going to fit in with what you guys have planned? But but they take the story and whatever they do and run with it.
Thank you.
Okay, and I just want to point out this guy who's trying to just shuffle away quietly is Cupcakes, who's the head of the Humble Brony Bundle, who a lot of you guys might have heard of. He does a lot of good charity work, so I just want to give him a shout out really quick.
Okay. I don't know where he's shuffling.
He's also the guy. He's also the guy who's written the backs of most of the pony trading cards that you guys have seen. So he doesn't. He's very humble about it, appropriately. But yeah. So we've got more questions from upstairs. So hi there.
Hello. I was wondering if you're ever going to go into, like, their parents a little bit more. Like, I know you mentioned Pinky's a little bit. You've seen Rarity a little bit. But, like, obviously Applejacks and all that.
I tried to give you an out.
I mean, we haven't on some characters, so I think that possibility is still there. I think some things that happened in season 3 in the background gave some information about certain characters that you mentioned, parents.
Red dot.
It really is dependent on if we find a good story to tell that is about the relationship between a child and their parent. It's certainly an area that we like to go to because we feel like it's very relatable, as that a lot of people in the audience can have experiences that we can have our characters go through with their parents. So we're it's never off the it's never off the table. It's just if we feel like it's something we can work with and make a good story out of, then we will.
Or they're Cylons.
And we've got another question from upstairs over there.
Yo. So, I don't know. Is there like an episode idea that you kind of fell in love with and then weren't able to do?
Wait, what was the last part that we fell in love with and then what?
Like you fell in love with an episode idea and then you just weren't able to make it.
Oh yeah, I think some. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, as Megan was saying, we try not to fall in love too much with them because you can't get too attached to something because very often it's just not going to happen. And you kind of, you move on. My lollygabber one, I was pretty in love with that.
I think some of us might start using that verb.
Lollygabber?
Yeah, lollygabbing.
I don't think I've fallen in love with an episode till it was done. Because there's so many, you can't get attached to it. You're throwing out ideas, you're throwing out this, you're throwing out that. It's all changing and, blah, blah, blah. And then you turn it in and like, actually, I like that. So, you're throwing out ideas all the time. You don't really fall in love with them, I don't think.
It's obvious that some of the story elements do come down from your corporate overlords. How does that fit into your writing process?
We just do whatever they say, basically.
Yeah, just
they
whatever
dictate the
they
episode
say,
to
they
us, we
dictate
type
that.
it.
Yeah, and we're just
That's it.
typers.
It's a program that runs on your computer. You don't actually put any words in. It just
Yeah.
appears.
And then they buy us houses and yachts and stuff.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty sweet. At the end of the day, I always feel like I get to tell the story that I want to tell. You're no matter what show you work on for anything, you're going to get notes and ideas from people who are above you, and that's just kind of the nature of this business. But I genuinely, Hasbro did something very smart, which was they built a studio and they hired a bunch of people who worked in animation to be the executives to oversee these projects. They didn't just say, "Oh, we'll just make a show." Like, they got people who genuinely care about making quality television to be in charge. And that was such a brilliant thing to do, because everybody who was working on this show loves this show. I mean, everybody is so excited about it and wants it to be really good. It's not, there's literally top to bottom not a person that's just like, we'll just hack this thing out, it'll be fine. I mean, everybody loves it and cares about it, and that's not just me like trying to whatever. I mean, it is a joy to work with a lot of the people that I interact with, because they care about making something quality and not just like it's a commercial or whatever. It's to tell good stories that people care about. So
Can I also add on that? We're making jokes about corporate overlords? Overloads. No, overlords.
Friendship overseers.
But the truth of the matter is these companies are what make the cartoons possible. And if selling consumer products, or making movies on the side, or doing commercials, or whatever it is, makes the cartoons possible, we have to sort of accept that and find the balance, regardless of what our job is, in there. So we can, we joke about them, but the reality is they're able to produce a product that we all get to watch and enjoy and look forward to.
I'd also just like to add that I got a little bit of flack for tweeting out that Hasbro wasn't Satan a few weeks ago. And there seems to be this conception that it's either or. Either they're forcing us to do something or they're not. And it's not. That's not it. It's much more collaborative. It's much more, hey, we have this idea. Can you work this in? Maybe, yeah, we could work it here. No, we can't. It's much more that. It's not like, do this or you're fired, or it's our idea and not theirs. It's a collaboration, and they're not Satan. Sorry.
I think
they're not.
I think to some extent they have to let you guys kind of convey your own individual energies in order for the show to be successful. I mean, if any company really micromanaged on that level, the show wouldn't have been, or if the company had, done that from the start, the show would not have been nearly as popular as it is. So, I mean, that's almost a sign of their level of involvement in that we have a fandom like this.
I've worked at a lot of different studios, and working with Hasbro or the Hub, I should say, has been great. They let us write our episodes, and they don't change them nearly as much as some of the other studios do. So maybe I have a narrow writer's perspective, but from my perspective, it's been great.
All right, so next question from the floor here.
Okay, hypothetically speaking, like, not saying that it will or won't be, but if Alicorn Twilight was going to be in season 4, how would you find that as per terms of difficulty for writing for the storyline if she was to be an Alicorn?
Did everybody hear that?
No.
Okay.
Alicorn Twilight in season 4, if she's going to be difficult.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Okay. Hypothetically speaking, not necessarily saying that she will or won't be there in season 4, but Alicorn Twilight, what difficulties would you see in writing for the storyline with her being as she is? Would you find it as difficult or more challenging?
I'll say it's not difficult at all. And in our season opener, all the sort of like fears and questions and all that kind of stuff, that's kind of what we explore, and come out the other side with something that is awesome. So yeah, the show stays the show that everybody is in love with, and the relationships just get deeper and more interesting, and the things that she struggles with are still very, very Twilight. Yeah, so don't worry for Alicorn Twilight. She's
And there's rarity episodes.
And there's rarity episodes, yes. And Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie and yeah.
You're going to double up on them to make up for lost time, right?
I think there's 16 rarity episodes in season 4.
If memory serves correctly,
Yeah.
which it clearly has in the past.
The show's title's changed to My Little Rarity. Friendship is fashionable.
Friendship is fashionable.
Yeah, actually. Not bad.
Don't take my ideas, they're terrible.
I have 2 questions for M.A. Larson. In the season 3 finale, what was the original intent of Star Swirl the Bearded spell?
What's the other one?
And the second second question is, when you wrote the Return of Harmony episode, did you originally conceive of Discord as a sociopath?
I based him on Cindy Morrow, so. Yeah, he was. You know, he's out for a good time, and that's his good time. And yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I guess so. He's sort of at a higher. You know, he's not in society. He's his own thing. But that's what I liked about him, is he's charming and he's fun and he's not overly evil. He's just having a good time. He almost doesn't even realize the negative impact he's having on some of the other characters. As for the first part, I'm going to take the 5th and pass it over to my left.
Yeah.
You brought this upon yourself.
I know. That's a good question. I don't know that we went into it knowing what he thought the end result, what he was sort of working towards. Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Probably
Yes,
not.
thank you all very much.
I have a theory. I think this is the way I saw it, at least, was that if he had succeeded with this spell, he would have known what the end of it was, right? And that Twilight succeeded with it, so she saw the end of it, right? That's the way I've seen it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Totally.
Yeah, go ahead.
Bones. Do we have one up there?
Oh, sorry. I didn't even realize. Sorry. Hi, my name is Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Mike. Mike.
Hi. Okay, so legit question here. What programs would you recommend for an aspiring writer? Because I'm using MS Paint. It's just not working out. No, real talk though, real talk. And this is for M.A. Larson, real talk. Why, and I think I speak for a lot of people here when I ask this, why did you turn Twilight into an acorn?
I believe Pixel Kitties did that. I mentioned it, and she actually did it. So you can take that up with her. She lives in the Golden Oak Library. What do you know?
You know.
It's been obvious from the start,
Is
guys,
it a
that she
surprise?
was going to turn into an acorn.
You know, Mike, I think that if Alex S. was up on stage, he would have answered that Hooked on Phonics is the way to write a fanfic. Just saying.
Touche. All right. No, seriously, real talk though. You guys are wonderful. Thank you for doing everything that you guys do. You guys make this show what it is. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
We have a question from online in the IRC, and that is why...
Who is it from, though, in the IRC? Is it, if it's Osaka Jack, I wouldn't be shocked.
What's the name of the guy who asked the question in the IRC?
I bet you anything
Like
it's
that we're
him.
just not, if it's a certain person, we're just not going to answer.
It's apparently multiple people are asking it, so
Fair
we
enough,
can't
fair
really
enough.
give a shout out. So, and what it was is, what made you decide to turn the season 3 finale into a musical?
We knew we wanted to do one in season 3, and that just kind of became the one that we thought it carried such emotional weight, and you can convey so many of those emotions through song, that I think that definitely influenced it, because we knew we didn't have this bigger epic 17-part thing to make this happen, at least in the end of the season. And so we felt like, well, we have to take her to a place emotionally and convey a lot of story in a kind of finite amount of time, and doing that through a musical just felt right, and we knew we wanted to do that type of episode. So.
It worked.
Thank you. Woo. Yeah, obviously Mitch and then Daniel just did such a good job, and I, we've known that Celestia was going to get to sing in that episode for a really long time. So it was like so painful for me not to be able to be like, guys, Celestia's going to sing. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be this like really moving song.
That is actually, I mean, we touched on it at the very beginning, but it is a really strange phenomenon. It's like I looked recently and I wrote this episode in November of 2011. So there's like, between when we do these things, like the new things that Cindy and Amy were talking about, and when you see them, there's a really bizarre like time stretch. So we're living in the past and the present at the same time, and it's really weird.
I think this is something, though, too, that there's been rumblings out there that it's good to clarify. This season finale was planned as is long ago, and was going to happen this way for a long time. I think that's a good thing to clarify, right?
Yeah.
2011.
Yes, in a galaxy.
It was in a galaxy
far away.
Far away.
Yeah, this was a long time coming.
Hi there. My question is, how often have you been writing an episode, falling in love with it, and by the end of it, you're like, oh, wait, this needs to have a moral? And then you have to go back and either rewrite part of it, or you just maybe tacked on one. Married to Will.
Once.
I think the only way you're going to get an answer to that is if you do what you need to do as Snowflake.
Look what you did, Cindy. Look what you did.
I know, it's so great. I was wondering where your wings were, because last time I think you were, didn't you have them strapped on? Or
no,
they were like that
same
last
shirt.
time?
It's just
Same shirt. Did you wash it since last? Just wondering. I actually think there's two different kinds of story meetings. There's one story meeting where it's just a big buzz and you get all that stuff out and you just write it and you can't stop writing on the board. And from start to finish, you don't take a break. And then there's the other kind of story meeting where you like talk about your hairstyle and how your kid's doing, and I really got to finish this story. I know, but I really want to tell you about this, vacation I'm going on. And that's kind of I don't know. I know when the story's not working because all of us want to take like Starbucks breaks or. I don't remember what we did that one time, but
watch YouTube videos.
You watch YouTube videos. So. In all seriousness, I think with very few exceptions, you have to have your moral or lesson or how your story, why you're telling the story. You have to kind of know that at the beginning.
A lot of times it's inherent in the premise.
And sometimes when it isn't, when you get to that end and you're like, oh gosh, we have a really awesome story, but we do have to have a moral. And we come up with the moral in the story meeting stage. And except sometimes, and so you do figure that out, and sometimes the tricky part is you want to make sure it's not the same moral as the episode from 3 meetings ago, things like that. But we do figure it out for the most part at that story meeting, and it's in there. It's not something that by the time you're writing the script, you know what that moral is going to be.
I almost think that the organic process of making the episode is why those morals are so universal, right? I mean, those morals kind of reveal themselves in a sense. You aren't coming in necessarily with, we are going to impose this lesson, it kind of derives from the material.
Yeah, because you have a character that wants something, and that they may have some external want, but it's being driven by an internal want, and for them to overcome that issue or to solve their problem, they have to learn to behave differently in the end than they did at the beginning. So that definitely leads that process to that less the character has to change, or whatever they started with will never, come to fruition at the end. So it's pretty rare that it's slapped on at the end, I feel like.
Thank you.
Did you get a lot of joy out of being able to just put "I didn't learn nothing" at the end of the Applejack Cider episode?
I couldn't believe that made it through every level.
I was with this guy in Chicago at Midwestern when he first saw the T-shirt of that. Drink cider, learn nothing.
So good.
And the look of joy on his face.
It's so good.
Do we have any questions from upstairs?
Yes, actually. I actually had a question from my listeners at TER, and they wanted to know, since you guys seem to be aware of when the fans come up with a personality for a background pony or any, are there any background ponies that you really don't like what the fans have come up with as that pony's personality, or really disagree with it?
There's like a moose somewhere over there, I think.
What
Do you see that?
characters are you guys talking You got there's background characters?
What was that?
You guys like?
What was that?
I don't know. I'm not aware of any that like a personality's developed like within the community. That I think that's fun that happens. I'm not gonna tell you not to.
From my perspective, and I don't know about you guys, but I don't really know anything about that. In a script, it'll say background pony 1, background pony 2. DHX will put in who they want, and then you guys go absolutely crazy and make it into a real character.
Yeah, it's not written into the script like these people will be in the these ponies will be in the background. It's people. Yeah.
That's your thing, and it's cool. I love that.
Yeah. So just like we don't read fan fiction, we don't know a lot about the background ponies. We obviously know about certain ones.
And if we did, we'd be pandering, right?
Yeah. And I'm wearing a background pony too, but I have no idea what his backstory is. But I think he's
Trust
really.
him, he's a doctor.
I think he's cool. I know who he is.
All right, so throughout the series, the antagonists, most of them have had episodes in which they redeemed themselves. We've seen this with Discord and Trixie. Is this kind of like, what's the decision behind that? And is it just for maybe favored characters, or is that for any antagonist?
It would be on on an antagonist by antagonist basis. I would say with Discord though, what excites me about reforming Discord is rather than just having him as a character that is messing with them. Is he messing with them? I don't know. I don't know how friendship works. I'm so confused. It gives us something to do with him where he's sort of this unreliable friend. That story-wise it makes him more, he's redeemed in that he has agreed, okay, I'll be good so I can stay friends, but he's still navigating friendship and he's still he can still sort of be himself. But they have a little bit of a hold on him, a little kind of keep him under control. But yeah, with him, that's definitely reforming him. Actually, gives us new ways to use him, rather than just he'll show up, mess with our lives, and that's kind of the end of it. So, spoiler alert.
We've got a question up there.
Hi guys. I was wondering if you guys could, if you had the opportunity to include any pre-existing song, like anything like Led Zeppelin or whatever, anything, into an episode, and copyright was no issue, what would you put in?
I would take something. Never mind. I'd take something off the Oh Brother Where Art Thou soundtrack and give it to the Apple family.
Oh yeah.
That Down to the River to Pray track, like with the Apple family, would be awesome. something like that.
I got nothing.
Okay. Two questions.
I was just gonna say I'm kind of partial to Depeche Mode, so maybe a song from there.
There's a fan musician named Dean Minoto who loves you now.
Okay. Two questions. My first question is, what would you do as writers if you had to write a season-long story arc?
Well,
What would we do?
you mean on this show or in general?
Depends
this
what
show?
Hasbro wants to sell. It's too many? Too many?
Too many.
Oh.
You've gone too far.
I retract that.
Um,
I take it back.
Perhaps you will need to watch the show to find out what one might do in that.
And my second question is, one of my favorite episodes was Just for Sidekicks. And what if you had to write another Lower Deck episode starring like Spike and the Pets and something like that again? What would you do?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know exactly what we do. I liked the fact that we got to do that, and I hope that, and the fact that we got to sort of do, what was happening while the other thing you saw was happening was a really fun thing to get to do. We'd have to come up with a story that wouldn't feel like we were just repeating ourselves or that it was just a rehash of that. But I think because we've done that, it opens it up where we could do that again, and people would be accepting of that. Like, it wouldn't be such a foreign thing like, oh no, how come all the main six aren't the key characters in this? I think because the show's been on for long enough and we're so many seasons in, that side characters and background characters and stuff like that can should we so choose, come to the forefront, and it won't be so off-putting to people to be like, this isn't the show that I expected it to be. So, but I have no idea what the story would be.
I love that the show has gotten to that place, though. That I think I like that episode a lot, and it's really fun to see Spike interact with Granny Smith or Winona. Like the minor characters. It shows about the world building that there's enough three-dimensionality to it that you can have an entire episode just about the secondary characters. I love that. It's very sitcom-y, a good sitcom.
I thought it was really cool that you guys made it a parallel episode to Games Ponies Play. That was really neat. And I know that I've heard that that people have already recut it and put certain sections in black and white, like in Memento.
Oh, awesome.
But yeah, no, I thought that was kind of neat, and it seems like you guys have been kind of exploring, what you can do with structure, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think that because we're going into a alleged fourth season, we can try some new things that we haven't done before. Remain absolutely true to the characters, to the tone, to all of that kind of stuff that everybody loves. But we have been able to build this world and to expand on that mythology and get deeper into it, to keep it fresh and to keep people really, really interested. It is exciting as a writer to feel like we can do that now.
Looks like we got a question up.
Thank you.
Upstairs there.
Are there any episodes that you have written where you weren't pleased with how they turned out? And if you could go back and change anything, what would you change? This is for anybody, for any show that you've written for.
That's a really loaded question. It's really hard to answer that without throwing other people under the bus, I've worked on shows where I can't believe my name is on it because I watch it and I didn't write any of that, not a word of it. Not this show, but I can't answer it. Maybe they will. No?
Yeah, I don't think I can answer. Yeah, because then somebody might go, oh, really? You didn't like that? Well, I'm not hiring you again. So but yes, there have been some. And I really don't like them.
Hello. I have a two-part question for you. The first part, I actually also was regarding the episode Just for Sidekicks. And one of the things that happened, actually, is the very first scene when we see Pee-wee, the little baby phoenix, and what happened between him and Spike and how eventually Spike sent him back to his parents and stuff. And I remember feeling a little disappointed because I thought I could see potential of thinking he could be his own little loyal pet, sort of like Owlicious is to Twilight and stuff. And I was wondering why you made the decision of what you did, like what brought you to that conclusion to go that direction with Pee-wee and stuff.
That was actually something that happened at the board stage. It was not in the script. What's really great is that so many the folks up at DHX, Jason, and that whole crew, especially Jason, he just has this encyclopedic knowledge of everything that has ever happened on the show ever, that even as writers we don't always have, because everything is plussed so much when we give it to them, that they do these things in the background that aren't scripted. So I can't totally speak for that, but I feel like it was probably thinking people are going to wonder where that character is. So let's give for the folks that are going to be interested in that, let's give them a little something, so they'll know what happened. But it wasn't something that happened in the writing process. It was boarded.
Okay, and the second part I want to ask is out of curiosity. Are any of you familiar with the playwright Tony Kushner?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, would you like him to write an episode?
The first draft of Lincoln was 500 pages long, so.
Sure, yeah. Pinky
that's
could
maybe
tell
a whole season.
Yeah, sure.
Pinky could tell a crazy story about a lawyer and his parrot who rants about the end of the world.
And do I see a question up there? I see someone I know very well. Oh, no, he's walking away. Okay. We have another question from upstairs.
My question was, do you guys wish you could write the show as a serial? In order.
I'm happy with the level of continuity that's got.
Like episode 1 would have to go after episode 2, would have to go episode 3. Otherwise, you wouldn't understand it.
I think it's a sitcom from my perspective.
Yes, consecutive episodes.
There's some things, obviously, that, I mean, one of the characters has wings now. There's some things that change along the way, but for the most part, it's a sitcom. And I think it has the right amount of serialization. It's not that kind of show.
I think there are so many characters whose stories we have to service, so many stories, that to have an arc you'd want an arc for all of them, I think, or you'd really have to focus everything on one character, and everybody else would sort of become more side characters as you followed that single character on a journey. So I personally like that we can do a ton of world building. There is a continuity that if you follow from start to finish, and you pay attention, you'll really see things come together. But I think the fact that we can have these standalone episodes really allows us to explore a lot of characters rather than just having to really zoom in on one character. For me, anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would just complicate things more. I mean, it would just make it more difficult, whereas we get to kind of have fun and play and, yes, build upon things and pull from things, but, things are kind of set back to the status quo at the end of episodes, and I like that, even though characters do learn and everything.
You are now tasked with writing an episode to convince the 20 to 30-year-old male demographic that you are worth watching. What happens in that episode? And I asked that question to each
shooting.
Of you. What's the demographic of My Little Pony? Do you know?
The explicitly the average 20 to 30.
I would say we would write exactly what we have already written.
Yeah, apparently we did.
It seems to be working for us, as far as I can tell.
Higher Tara Strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering, part of the reason we all love the show is because the characters are so deep and complex and flawed in some ways. Are there any aspects of the characters that you wish you could go into, but you really can't because of the medium and the context?
I don't think so. Not for me. I think that there are types of stories that issues that maybe would be off limits for because we do have a younger audience. But as far as the characters themselves, not really. There's not aspects of their personality that would be like too adult. I personally, I think that like we never graduate from the planet 8th grade. Like who we are as adults is not that different from who we are as kids. So the kind of flaws that they have that a younger audience can relate to, I think we still relate to when we get older.
Yeah, I also think there's a level of darkness you go to, and you really don't want to go below that. The show, I think, part of the reason I love working on it, and I think you guys like it, is it's this magical, out-of-world place. It's happy, it's joyous, it's sincere, and you bring in this element of darkness that goes too far. I mean, you can do a little bit of it, and then you might lose some of that innocence. So
that's what we call the realm of the fanfic.
That's what we're
Grim dark.
Exactly. And I just said thank y'all. Y'all do an amazing job on the show. Thank you very much for writing it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
This question is directed to M.A. Larson. In the episode Magic Duel, I don't know if this was answered on Twitter jokingly or seriously, why does Trixie not trust wheels?
I probably should have prepared for that question.
Have you ever been serious on Twitter? That's another question.
I warn you first if I'm going to say something serious.
Oh.
Okay. You got to watch it again if you missed it. Come on, man.
Pretty obvious.
The whole idea with her was there's actually some stuff that got cut. There was quite a bit that got cut out for time, but Howard Hughes turning her into this more and more eccentric. She doesn't wear Kleenex boxes on her feet, but she doesn't trust wheels. She's her own. She was just going further and further, like crazy.
Thank you.
First, as someone whose life was saved by your writing, I'd like to say thank you. And then I was wondering if there is any advice you can give someone who has dreamed about writing on your show for, say, a season 5 or a season 6 or a season 400. What advice would you give that person?
I guess just to write and to know the show, but just to know how TV writing works, to learn how animation writing works, and to write in the medium that you would like to pursue, because writing a novel or a short story or whatever is very different from writing for television. So trying to get your hands on scripts, not even necessarily just for this show, but just for whatever you can get your hands on to really study how it's different from other writing. And get people who will give you honest feedback about your writing, not people that are going to tell you what you need to hear, but tell you what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. And then any chances that you get to talk to or meet people who are involved in these things. This isn't like an open invitation for everyone to send me their script. I just prefaced it that way. But I think I feel like most writing careers start with a connection that you made, that you were prepared to do something with the fact that you made that connection. You had been working really hard in honing your craft so that when an opportunity came up, it wasn't a wasted opportunity. You could say, like, I know what I'm doing. And try to forge, those relationships. And
I would say also don't underestimate the PA job. There are creators, for instance, at Cartoon Network, creators of shows that start off as PAs. So don't be afraid of taking that bottom of the, what do you call it? Yeah.
I completely agree with that. PAs don't stay PAs. And I know a lot of people who started as PAs who moved up.
I started as a production assistant on the Powerpuff Girls, And I had a play that I wrote that was being produced in Hollywood. Powerpuff was having problems with the writing, and they needed somebody to write outlines, and I approached Craig McCracken the same day he was going to approach me about trying, and I tried, and I was good at it, and then I became head writer of the show. But that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been a production assistant and been there in his sights.
I hate this is how it is, but it's who you know, and that's why you want to be PA. You meet people. All of us knew Lauren before the show. That's how we got on it. That's why you want to be a PA. You meet people on shows, and then they think of you, and then you get on the next show, and that's the way it is. It sucks, but that's the way it is.
Or you go to college with them.
Or you
so
go
I
to
went to
college
college with Craig and Lauren.
Yeah, but again, that's who you know. I got my job on Powerpuff Girls because of somebody I went to school with at Cal Arts. So it all just kind of loops in.
We went to college together too.
So there's no real way to break in. It's just working your way in from the bottom up.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much. I mean, I won a contest. Disney used to have a writing fellowship, and anybody in the world can enter it, and I did, and I was one of the finalists, and so that was sort of how I got in. But I got in because I had worked really hard writing a script to turn into that. So, I mean, I think when we say, like, it's who you know, that makes you feel like, oh, you got to have, like, a rich uncle that runs whatever. And that's not what we mean at all. It just means that if this is something that interests you, find those kind of entry-level sort of positions and let people know this is what your kind of end goal is, and be a good person that people like hanging out with, because that's another part of having a successful writing career is you have to be in the room with the same people a lot. And if you're the guy that nobody wants to hang out with, you might not get asked on to other things.
I just tweeted one the other day, one of these things she's talking about for Nickelodeon that's still open until February 28th, where anybody can apply. So just look for those. Like, look at her now.
Draft, how many more questions?
We got about time for a few more yet, actually.
Two more?
We got. Oh, I'm seeing hands from.
Well,
upstairs.
hold on. Actually, I think that we should allow, because we have one from the internet again, and then.
No, we've got time for a few. We've
got time for a few.
Yeah, we got about 9 more minutes. So
9 minutes. Okay.
I see someone I know up there.
Okay. Well, we've got
You
one.
might have heard
It's
of
all
him.
about who you know on questions.
Yeah. Hi, Seth.
Hi. How's it going, guys?
Hi, Seth.
Hey, so I got 2 questions for you. One from Serial over here and one from myself. I'll start with Serials because it's less going to give me crap. First off, how long did you guys have on the season finale to actually do it, to write it?
Oh. I mean, our typical schedule is 9 weeks from premise to polish. But I don't remember if that is, I'm sure we used that amount of time, but getting to that premise was longer than that, I guess. I don't remember exactly how long it was, really.
From my point of view, it was the same as any other episode. I'm sure it might have been pushed in the schedule just because Daniel had to do so much more work, and that takes time.
Yeah, I think we started it earlier than, like we had other episodes that aired before the season finale. We started writing after we started that one.
All right. Second question, and this is the one I'm probably going to get crap for. Are we ever going to see Trixie again?
You had to ask.
Of course.
How did I know that was going to be your question?
We all knew it was going to be his question, but it had
It's
to be.
got to be.
Maybe.
I like it. Let's do it. Thanks for everything you guys do, and thanks for bringing Trixie back.
Speak close to the mic, and you will be heard. Get close to the mic.
I have 2 questions. The first one is, where will Derpy or Zecora ever appear again?
Megan, wait.
Yeah, no kidding.
And my second question is, how do you give something important to, like, something special and something important to one pony, like Alicorn Twilight, and still balance out the importance of the other ponies?
You will find out.
I'm going to ask a question.
They all get robotic suits.
I'm going to ask a question on the internet because I know we've been streaming this later on. I would like a still frame of Megan's wink to be made into a meme because it's perfect.
I've mastered it.
All right, and then we've got a question from the IRC. Firemain asks, what is the funniest stage direction that you have written to the storyboarders for an episode?
And if you guys don't know, Firemain is a very talented wood carver who's done a lot of work for charity and raising a lot of awareness for Kiki's Fund. So.
Oh, gosh, yeah. I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
I wrote one in the Magical Mystery Cure that said it was something like somebody's singing, the background ponies join in, they're all singing, and in parentheses, if it doesn't piss off DHX too much, dancing. There's a lot of fun, there's a lot of fun references where Rarity in Magic Duel, she gets cast in this ugly dress, and then Pinkie Pie helps her away. I wrote that Pinkie Pie ushers her away like James Brown. It just gives you, like, if you know what that reference is, you know exactly what that looks like. So in a way, it's like, I thought it was kind of funny, but it's also nice shorthand for DHX. Like, they know exactly what I was shooting for there in one little line. So.
Hello. Do any of you have experience with horses, riding, handling, or watching? If so, has it influenced your riding in any way?
I've ridden a horse a couple times. That's about it.
I've bet on them.
When I was little, I went to this father-daughter camp with my sister and my dad and I, and they had horseback riding, and my sister was younger than I was, and I had gotten to do like a lot of the other activities because I was a little bit older. So my dad was like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna go. We'll take our horse and ride off, and the person will just lead your horse around the circle." So like my dad and my sister like rode off into the sunset having fun, and I just had to ride in a circle. So I hate horses. Because I thought I would project that rage on the horse rather than like my sister and my dad because I have to spend Christmas with them. But anyway, no. But yes, so I'm actually kind of terrified of real life horses. I prefer like the pastel cute.
This particular one has gifts for you as well. So.
And the horse she was riding that day was white with a purple mane.
And I think we've got time for maybe one or two more questions at most. Do I see one upstairs? Are you queuing up, Ohan? No? Okay.
We're so cute.
No, all right.
Something's going on up there.
Yeah. No, he's just standing there.
That's so cool.
You should show the crowd.
Yeah,
that's so
that's
cool.
pretty freaking cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thanks.
I tweeted that if I saw anybody cosplaying as me at this convention that I would give them a prize, but I haven't had any takers yet. But I did bring my own cutie mark. And I believe the guy that made it is actually here. At the
Oh, is that Screw Loose?
Yeah.
Yep,
So.
Screw Loose is here. Yep.
All right, I have a question. Oh, this one's loud. I have a question from the internet, the chat room, from Firemain. I'm sure y'all know who Firemain is. He's the wood carver.
He just asked a question.
Oh,
is
never
it
mind.
the same one? Thanks, A-Track. Okay, we'll do that. I think we'll take one last one from down here, and then we'll ask Fee up there. So.
But if real quick, I'm saying if you have a question that we could answer in like 140 characters, maybe times 3, then tweet it to us, and we'll try to answer you because we want to be able to answer as much as we can. So if you don't get a chance, try us that way.
My question regards the episode Lesson 0. Was it your intention to turn Twilight into an obsessive-compulsive wreck of a pony, or was that something that just came up out of the blue?
I think that I was just assigned that premise, like that sort of existed as a premise. It wasn't an original idea that I pitched to Lauren and Rob at the time. I was given the premise. But it was pretty easy for me to take her to that place because I can go to that place. But yeah, I mean, taking a character like that and pushing her to the extreme is always really funny and fun, and it's great that we're allowed to do that. But yes, I wanted to push her pretty far over the edge.
All right, and I think our last question that we've got time for could be from Fee upstairs.
Is that Fee?
That is Fee.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes, we can.
Yay! All right, so I think as the show has developed, it's kind of gathered a reputation as having a lot of antagonists that are sorts of cults of personality that are very popular and flamboyant. And unfortunately, however, sometimes story ideas don't necessarily allow you to develop that sort of personality, like when the Crystal Empire was happening and Sombra showed up and he was just sort of a set piece. I know that caused a lot of disappointment in a bunch of fans who were looking for another Chrysalis. But when you're writing a thing like that, how much of an intimidation factor is there in trying to live up to previous antagonists, and how much effort goes into, I guess, villain development? I'm not sure.
I think that's directed at me, right? He was a really tough one for me. I think what I had in my head was very like a Sauron type character who's just an evil presence, and I think that what I had hoped, or what I had kind of intended, was that his sort of dark magic that remained was sort of an indicator of his evil nature. Obviously, for some people that didn't work. But I kind of thought of him as more of a sort of shadowy kind of presence, because that creeps me out. And I knew that the way that she was going to have to deal with him was not going to be as kind of an in-your-face character like a Discord or even Chrysalis. But that's the least favorite character that I have written, because I felt like a lot of the he wasn't as formed as I would have liked either. But it wasn't for lack of trying, I guess is the answer. But I can certainly see how that wouldn't be a favorite of people. I'm not like, what are you talking about? This is the greatest character ever invented. I accept the fact that he might not have been as scary as I had wanted him to be. So.
Also, what are your views on
But
tiny
he's dead
U's?
now, so who cares?
Well, all right. I think we've run out of time. Everybody, I think that these guys deserve a really big round of applause. The writers of My Little Pony: M.A. Larson, Meghan McCarthy, Amy King Rogers, and Cindy Morrow. And the final draft, thank you.
Apologies to anyone who
Thank
did
you
not
so
get
much.
to ask their question on the microphone. We just ran out of time.
That's what we have next.
Thanks, M.A. Larson.
All right, once again, I'm Joe Stevens.
And I'm LTT Moose.
And we just got done watching the writers panel. Wasn't that fantastic?
It was always amazing to see the creative, drive that goes into these episodes. The amount of thought that goes into them.
We saw a lot of new things from people. We didn't see terribly many surprises. I think we just got a lot of in-depth
Exactly,
from
clarifications, if you will.
clarifications
Yes.
and in depth. Obviously, we can't talk about season 4, but I was actually surprised. They kind of teased some elements of season 4.
A little bit, yes. Saying, oh, well, we didn't explain everything.
And I think
Yeah.
the big takeaway was when they hinted at what the season 4 opening is going to be. It's going to be about analyzing the Twilight Alicorn.
Exactly. It's going to be about character development, finding out how this event has changed the character.
So no specifics, but
No.
she said and she actually said, we're going to find out that we understand that it is going to change things, and so we're
Right.
exploring that. And I was frankly very excited about that. To
Of
hear
course,
that.
it builds the suspense of that type of thing there because, it addresses a lot of the questions. Well, we can't say for sure if it will address the questions, but they acknowledge that, there were, some
Right.
cliffhangers
We're,
there.
we're not
Yeah.
just going to say, oh, she's an Alicorn, and now we're moving on.
Exactly.
I mean,
Now it's just going to be Twilight with wings. That's all it's
yeah.
going to be.
No. There's a big change, and I think that they were. You saw the passion that they have for the show.
Exactly. That's what I think sets a lot of this apart from many other shows. There is that the writing staff, everybody from the writing staff to the voice actors to the producers to the animators to the storyboard artists, has a passion for this show.
Notice
Everybody
that
is
M.A.
just-
Larson said there have been shows in the past I did not want my name attached to them. It is not this show, although ironically enough, he did change his name for M.A. and it's for this show. That's an irony right there. I'm sure he appreciates.
Oh, that's him going Hollywood, right
Yeah,
there.
he's
Yeah,
Hollywood.
exactly.
Well,
Yeah, so-
we love you, Mitch. And so, but yeah, it looks like they're still doing some autographs or still doing some chats and everything.
Exactly.
There's
people
some good
running
stuff.
up to the stage with their last-minute
And
questions.
so
yeah.
we actually have some interviews that we've got to go taken care of.
That's indeed, yes. We have a couple of interviews scheduled up with there, a couple of the voice actors. I'm looking forward to that.
We got some voice actors interviews. We've already aired a few. We've got more floor coverage, more interviews coming your way, so stick tuned. We've got the concert tonight, too, so stay tuned to Everfree Network's live coverage of Lost Pegasus Unicon. Coming up next is the Fan Built.
Yes, Fan Built with Lee Tokar.
With Lee Tokar. So stay tuned. We're going to play some floor coverage and interviews from us, and we'll have Lee Tokar with Fan Built coming up next. Stay tuned.
It's time.
Hello.
So
I said hello.
You gotta
hello.
Eat the microphone. Okay, another thing you'll notice at these panels is that voice actors, when they sit down next to a microphone, instantly know where to place it. Instantly. Writers are like, what is this thing? Do I speak into it? Do I write about it? What do I do with it? Okay, so sitting to my left and to your right is M.A. Larson. Next we have story editor Meghan McCarthy. Next to her is Amy Keating Rogers. And next to Amy's, I believe, ukulele. Is that right? Yeah, is your ukulele? Okay, you don't have to applaud the ukulele. Questions addressed to the ukulele will be summarily discounted and ignored. And last but certainly not least is Cindy Morrow. I want to start off this panel by doing something a little bit, I guess, opinionated of myself. I usually, when I come to conventions, I don't wear swag. It's just something I don't do. I usually wear, the badge or whatever. But today I wore a pin that the lovely Pixel Kitties came up with. It says, "I believe in M.A. Larson." And I just want to say, just off the bat, that I really want to congratulate you guys on season 3. It just ended. I think the season finale is one of the strongest episodes of the series so far, and you guys had a lot to do with that, especially M.A. and Megan here. So, well, Amy King Rogers.
Yes.
Everybody's on their phones. I love this. Every convention, the smartphones come out. Mine's giant, I know. You have been working on Care Bears.
Oh, I've actually been done with Care Bears for probably a year.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't divulged that because I wasn't able to talk about that I was working on season 4. So I just kept saying, I'm working on Care Bears. So yeah, I'm finished with Care Bears, and I've been writing on season 4. Ooh, woohoo! Of this show, and doing other things on the side as well.
Awesome. And Cindy, I hear rumors that you have been writing episodes for Disney and for Nickelodeon. Is that correct?
I'm just working on some projects, not necessarily episodes, but there is writing involved. Is that vague enough? There is writing involved.
That's really vague. Uselessly so.
I'm doing the writing. How's that? Is it a little more specific? You can never talk about shows until they're announced or they're made.
Until you guys like
they
snoop
actually...
them out by reading like business reports or whatever.
Right,
from the parent company. And
Cindy and I are actually working on something. We're both writing. It's not something we came up with, but it's something that we both got hired to write something. But we both signed these non-disclosure agreements, so then it makes it for very boring conversations because they're like, "Yeah, I'm writing on something, but can't tell you anything about it." So that's kind of what Cindy's trying to talk around at the moment.
But yes, I am clicking away on a keyboard, which makes words appear on a screen.
Little less useless, still useless. No. Well, actually, one thing that originally when this particular panel was planned was that you guys were going to discuss or in a sense demonstrate how episodes were assembled. Unfortunately, we don't have the equipment to do it. But I was wondering, Meghan, if you could kind of describe for the audience here who may not know, how is it that you guys as a team write episodes for My Little Pony or for other shows you work on? I wanted to just start off right away and just say that because that's fresh in a lot of our minds and, you know, it's something that I think you deserve some applause for. So,
thanks.
Well, so first I wanted to introduce you guys. For you guys who don't know, M.A. Larson here is the writer of such episodes as Sonic Rain Boom, Return of Harmony, It's About Time, and that's it.
And a bunch of other stuff.
And I guess my first question for you, M.A., is what if you could say something to Full Papers right now, what would you say, and why isn't it condescending enough?
It could never be condescending enough. I'd probably say, "Hey, baby," which is sort of an inside joke, so that's why.
A little bit. No, so Meghan, how are you finding Vegas?
awesome.
You have to talk into the microphone.
Yeah, I know. You're right. We don't know what to do.
Are things, you know, as a story editor now, I mean, I think this is something that's kind of interesting to talk about because season 4 has been announced.
Sort of.
Sort of.
not by us, but yeah.
Theoretically announced and
Yes,
semi-confirmed.
Yes, it's
you know, one thing that people don't realize is that the episodes are written way before when they air. But I did want to ask, have things started to kind of die down a little bit now that the season is over, or is that when production moves into full swing?
It's not. It hasn't. We're in full swing, and
really.
Yeah. Well, we're moving at a clip with all the writing. So yeah, we kind of and we're doing something really. I think that's really ambitious for season 4. It's something we haven't done on the show before, and so we've mapped out something that's much bigger and more epic for this upcoming season than anything we've done in the past. So yeah, we're right in the thick of it. But yeah, so then we'll bring in whoever's going to write the episode. And we were kind of hoping we could try to do it today, but we don't have it. But we usually have a big whiteboard behind us, and we break it into Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. And we'll basically beat out all the scenes in the episode. Sometimes we'll pitch jokes in the room. A lot of times it's just here's how the story is gonna move forward. And then my new favorite thing to do is whenever the stories meeting is over, I like to write somewhere in there, Applejack pregnancy scare. just so like whoever has the conference room next might see it and be like, wait, what? so far it hasn't, like, I like laugh about it at home. I'm like, they're going to see it. It's going to be hilarious. And so far, no one has mentioned it. So I guess they all just think, like, season 4, Applejack's having a baby or something. I don't know. Seem okay
Are
with
you
it.
confirming that she's not?
Applejack, I can confirm that Applejack will not have a baby in season 4. I can. I can. I'm sorry to be the one to squash that rumor. I know that was what everyone was looking for. And also, these guys, you may want to kind of talk about what their sort of personal process is once we've broken the story, or what they kind of want to, you know, because sometimes we'll walk out of there and have things really fleshed out, and sometimes it'll just be like, fill in the gaps, you know what'll happen. But it's kind of different with every writer, so I don't know if anybody else wants to sort of speak to once we have the story meeting, how they proceed from there.
She's looking at you, M.A.
I don't want to. Yeah, it's basically fleshing, just expanding at every step of the way. First, you start macro. This is the episode. Here's who it's about. Then you break it down. That's what that meeting's about. And then you kind of build it back up, little piece by little piece, I guess.
You seem to have it pretty well together.
I think also what we typically do, excuse me, I've been sick all week. For most of the jobs that I've done in the last few years, we always follow up a meeting with an outline, and an outline is usually a fairly detailed synopsis about what is going to happen in the episode.
Sure. First, our corporate overlords. Come in and tell us this is the story that you should tell.
Is that Mattel? Is it Mattel?
No, the real way that it happens is that at the beginning of every season, we have a big powwow where we get the writers, the people that are going to write episodes that season, come in for a couple days, and we just throw out, everybody comes in with a couple of springboards, just very simple ideas that have hopefully a beginning and a middle end, but sometimes just a nugget of something. And we throw them up on a big whiteboard, and then we sort of say, these are the ones we're really clicking with. And we will, as a group, just kind of break those out into about a paragraph's worth of information. And then those are submitted. And sometimes they're written by someone who was in that meeting with us. Sometimes I'll just type them up, though I've been just trying to assign them to other people instead of me having to do it. And then those will get submitted to the studio and the network, and we'll get their feedback on what's working or not working. And then we'll schedule a story meeting with the writer who'll be doing that particular episode. And sometimes that episode is an idea that writer came up with themselves, but a lot of times it's just something that either we came up with in the room, or me having gotten a bunch of premises rejected, sat in a room by myself, just freaking out until I came up with something to give them to do. And then we will, and usually if it's like an episode that like totally be misconstrued as like racist or anti or like pro-religion or super right-wing, I just give it to Polsky. Or if like we're planning on killing off like sentient beings, I'll be like, Polsky, you take this one.
You know, I have to jump in really quick. Have you heard the way that people have been mishearing Applejack's recent song?
Racist Barn? Yeah.
Racist Barn? Is that Polsky's fault as well?
No, that's all Cindy.
That's my fault.
Okay.
Just put that all on Cindy.